Okay, we're continuing this session then, looking at online infidelity, and initially going to ask, is it actually a real thing? Is it real? And I kind of hinted or suggested earlier that if there's no kind of sort of physical contact taking place, is it actually real? Is it a real thing? And indeed, if the interaction between two people is just carried out online with no intention of meeting, with Ashley Madison, for example, people do go online to get as like a dating site, excuse me, to meet other people. But what has been talked about as being online infidelity can also mean meeting somebody online, having that sustained interaction, like Kimberly Young said. And not actually meeting in person. So therefore, if that's the case, is it a problem? Is it real? I don't want to be kind of judgmental or moralistic about it, but I'm trying to look at this in a more kind of psychological way. One way, perhaps, in which we can maybe establish whether it's a kind of real thing or not, is, in a kind of psychological sense at least, is to look at the emotional consequences of online infidelity. So obviously there are kind of ethical implications involved with this, but if somebody was cheated on, if one partner was unfaithful, okay, then the partner who was cheated on, who had been unfaithful to, would suffer emotionally. Would this emotional distress then be the same if it was an online affair as if it was a kind of real life person-to-person affair? Okay. Well, there's been some attempt to look at this. Underwood and Finley, for example, back in 2004, you can look at their paper, but basically what they found was that only 17 out of 73 people they asked, when they described a scenario where one person was being unfaithful to somebody else in an online sense, what they responded said in a nutshell, and the paper obviously says more than this, but the kind of the headline finding was that 17 out of 73 said that the people in the scenario would be affected. Okay, that's round about a quarter, isn't it? Monica Whitty, on the other hand, she presented people with a hypothetical scenario about a person engaging in an online extra relationship encounter. Okay, so it's an online encounter, it's not a face-to-face one, there's no attempt or intention to meet face-to-face, it's just a hypothetical scenario which involves a person being in an online extra relationship. So she asked people to judge these hypothetical scenarios. So quite obviously, for ethical reasons, you can't ask people about their own experiences, but you can present them with scenarios about a relationship between two people and ask people to judge those scenarios. Anyway, in Whitty's study, 51% believe that person in this scenario, 51% of her respondents said that the people in the scenarios they judged would say that they were being unfaithful, and 84% said that one partner had been betrayed by the other. So there's quite a difference between the two lots of findings, between Underwood and Finley's findings and a year later Monica Whitty's findings. So we've got about 20% in the Underwood and Finley one, whereas we've got half to almost sort of 4/5 in the Whitty study. So there's maybe the jury's out a little bit there. Okay, so the reason why people get jealous of unfaithful behaviour, certainly men, is because the men want to be certain of paternity and don't want to invest time and potential resources in fathering children which are not their own. Furthermore, if their female partners become pregnant by someone else, then they lose the chance to reproduce themselves for at least probably about a year, don't they? So if they're not the father of children which their female partners are carrying, okay, then they've lost a whole year in terms of being able to reproduce. In North America, apparently genetic studies have revealed that around about 10% of children are fathered by people who are not their de facto fathers. Okay, so they're fathered by people outside of their parents' relationship. Then there are kind of variations around this, but that's what savants finding this around about sort of 10%. So 1 in 10 children are not fathered by their sort of putative fathers. So which kind of leads us on to what we spoke about last week about what gets us jealous. And I show you David Buss's forced choice scenario to please think of a serious committed relationship you've had in the past, that you currently have or would like to have. Imagine you discover that the person with whom you've been involved excuse me, became interested in someone else. What would distress or upset you more? Okay, imagining your partner forming a deep emotional attachment to that person, or imagining your partner enjoying passionate sexual intercourse with that other person. And what we saw last time was the emotional option. Okay, certainly in American studies tends to be chosen more by women, whereas the sexual option, B, what would make you more jealous? Imagine your partner enjoying sexual intercourse with that other person was chosen more by men in terms of making them more jealous. Okay, and the explanation, as I said, is that jealousy is a behaviour which has evolved to kind of protect or guard our relationships. So it's not, unless someone's chronically jealous, as we said, and I don't want to go on about this week, but unless somebody's chronically jealous all the time, okay, jealousy is quite a natural, adaptive behaviour in order to protect our relationships. There is some sort of evaluation, at least, to be said about this evolutionary model. I think I asked you last time to maybe have a think about this, but there are some sort of big sort of criticisms of that kind of David Buss forced choice scenario. And the first big one really is that there are big cross-cultural differences. According to Christine Harris in 2004, there are big sort of cross-cultural differences. So last week when I said that 60% of males choose the sexual option, when you take the study to Asia, that number decreases down, or various Asian countries, that number decreases down to about 25%, and it even decreases down from 60% when the study is performed in European countries. When you take it further east, the effect seems to sort of get smaller and smaller. So if there are cross-cultural differences, then you'd have to wonder if the effect was basically down to kind of like an American culture. And it might not be sort of biologically driven or as biologically driven by evolution as we might originally have thought. According to Grice and Seeley's study, it suggested that female sexual experience, okay, that kind of moderates or sort of waters down female responses. So, the more sexually experienced females are, okay, the more likely they are to report that the sexual option would make them more jealous as opposed to the emotional option. So it is sexual experience on the part of females which kind of, moderates their responses. And thirdly, when you look at the wording of that scenario, it says, what would distress or upset you more? Well, when you ask somebody what would distress or upset you more, what exactly does that mean? And does it have different meanings for different sexes? Generally, distress or upset might mean anger for males and sadness for females. So upset and distress to some extent is ambiguous, and it might be perceived differently by different sexes. So if the meaning of the scenario comes across differently to different sexes, then you can possibly be forgiven for getting different results. So I think what we're saying is that we need to sort of tighten up on the the kind of word in there, the semantics in terms of what distress or upset actually means to different people. Anyway, we had a go at reconstructing Buss's study, rather than having an emotional relationship, we had an internet relationship, so an online relationship. Remember I said that online relationships, online affairs could be where there's no actual physical contact taking place and the parties don't actually meet. Okay, so we had a scenario involving an internet relationship, and we had a scenario involving a sexual relationship. Okay, and our results there on the bottoms, if you compare those to the ones from Buss from 1982 at the top, so you can see with Buss's results there's a good interaction between males and females for the sexual and emotional scenarios. We, as I said, we've got a sexual scenario and an internet scenario, and we've got a significant difference for the internet one, where females report being more distressed by that one. And unfortunately, I think we have a bit of a ceiling effect going on there with the sexual one, with males and females reporting right up at the top there that they'd be extremely jealous for that one. But there was not much difference for the sexual one, but at least we did find some difference for the internet one. So all in all, and overall, what that is telling us is that it seems that for an internet relationship, it seems that females get more upset about male partners having an internet relationship than males do of females, their female partners having an internet relationship outside of their normal relationship. So in other words, females see internet relationships possibly as being more important than males, and that's consistent with the results of Buss, because Buss's findings there show us that females are more upset about emotional infidelity. If you consider that internet or online relationships might reflect a degree of emotional infidelity, okay, then that result is consistent with our result is consistent with that of Buss. So just to recap then, I said that the male jealousy mechanism was motivated by sexual infidelity of a mate, and the female jealousy mechanism is motivated most by the emotional infidelity of a mate. Okay, but you can look at that and maybe kind of cross-examine that and think is that actually the case? I think in your own time, and have a little think about that, and think if you think that is entirely accurate, entirely reflective of the ways in which males and females behave. And certainly, again, looking at the data of that study when Buss's research was done, coming up to 30 years ago, you might have considered that the world might have changed between now and then, and that things might be a little bit different. Okay, so one thing which might have an effect as well on how jealous people get to infidelity is what we call rival attractiveness. So rivals being people outside of our relationship who are trying to mate poach our partners. So it might be people who like I said, who are not in our relationship but nevertheless might be trying to sort of form a sexual alliance with our partner. Then they'd be considered to be rivals. Okay, and one big factor which might have an effect on jealousy in terms of unfaithful behaviour is how attractive we perceive our rivals to be. I think I might have said before that the biggest threat for females is other females who are physically attractive, and the biggest threat for males is other males who are dominant and powerful and who have great resources. Okay, so Wade and Fowler looked at this, and quite simply what they found was that it was, when you look at either attractive or unattractive rivals, attractive rivals, as I just outlined there, pose more of a threat and cause more jealousy than unattractive rivals. So for females, attractive rivals, physically attractive rivals, okay, who might be, we might think our partner's having an affair with, they might cause more jealousy than unattractive females. And for males, powerful males with resources, who we think are our female partners consider attractive, they would provoke more jealousy than males with fewer resources and were less powerful. Okay, certainly when we talk about jealousy in terms of unfaithful behaviour, there are also other measures as well which we can bring in. So as well as jealousy, as well as asking people how jealous they might be, you can also ask somebody maybe how angry they might be. They might feel angry at the thought of their partner forming a relationship with somebody else. They might feel hurt at their partner forming a relationship with somebody else, or they might feel disgusted. Okay, so there are other emotions and other measures as well as jealousy in terms of partner behaviour outside of our relationship. So if our partner were having an affair, or we thought they were, we certainly might experience jealousy, but we might also experience anger, hurt, or disgust. So those are important measures and measures of sort of emotional response to bring in. And in our little study again, okay, we looked just quite simply here at measures of jealousy, anger, hurt, and disgust, okay, and the kind of main effects of these between males and females, and in the overall, whether it was an online relationship or a face-to-face one, overall, we found females to report more jealousy, more anger, more hurt, and more disgust over all conditions. Okay, whether it be an online relationship or an offline relationship. When we brought in rival attractiveness and mode of relationship, so we got online and offline, okay, and we've got attractive and unattractive, bizarrely what we found was for the online relationship, attractive rivals, okay, sort of produced more jealousy than unattractive rivals. For the offline condition, the attractive rivals produced a little bit more jealousy than the unattractive ones, but not enough to be significant. Whereas in the online one, that kind of seemed to produce far more jealousy. So this is collapsing across different genders. This is for both males and females, and this is for jealousy. Okay, that in the online condition there was more jealousy than for the offline condition. The only explanation we came up for that really was that in that kind of online condition, there may be in some kind of idealizing effect. There may be in people's imaginations might have been a little bit more vivid. So thus that produced more jealousy, or an anger, hurt, and disgust, as I got there. Okay, so that is it for this session then on online infidelity. And in the final session next week, we're going to be looking at persuasion online.